like to welcome everyone to today's Financial Services Audit and Compliance Committee. I appreciate all of our members in attendance, and for those that are viewing via the internet. So, our agenda today is we are going to do the reports to the proposed board agenda items by the committee, the financial services, the IT equipment, the 20 laptops and 20 desktops purchase.
Turn it over to CFO Cutter for presentation.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Board of Directors and to the public at large. We are bringing before you an action item for approval for the procurement of 20 desktop systems and 20 laptops. This comprises replacement equipment that's fully depreciated and or inoperable that are currently being used by staff personnel. In addition, this number will also accommodate new employees coming on board that needs this equipment to accomplish their essential work functions. We are recommending award to Lenovo directly to the manufacturer for a total cost of $45,400. They are the local.
Money in our budget.
Yes, ma'am, it's included in the FY capital plan.
The only other thing I would ask, and this is more out of curiosity, when was the last time this equipment was replaced? Do you know?
I don't have that information. Prior to Kat bringing on an IT manager, there was no real inventory related to this type of equipment. Within the FY24 budget, we have established a replacement plan, which will document the equipment assignment, date in service, and the life. All of that will be planned out within the capital plan.
And I would say to you, Director, excellent question. I would say to you that based upon at least the daily operations and our equipment, I would tell you that a lot of our equipment is quite outdated. So in addition to some of the lack of perhaps previous, some of the management pieces that needed to be in place for things like this, I will tell you that a lot of what we have is really quite outdated. So it's much needed.
I was hearing that that's what you must say, because I don't recall the last time we talked about updating our electronic equipment and how important it is to have the stuff that functions properly and stays functioning, keep everything on track. So I was just curious, and the fact that it's in our budget makes me feel very good.
And next month, I will be bringing forward a recommendation to open a capital account. And that account will house money to accommodate the replacement schedule for capital items.
Well, let me ask you one question, because this happens a lot with accounting. And I'm sure with the APTA, a lot of times when some agencies will make a purchase, if they dovetail with another agency, they can get a bulk rate. And I don't know if we are in touch with other organizations that might be in some similar position that we are as far as replacing equipment and to get a better price. And absolutely.
We do that, Director Scott, wherever possible. that's one of the first places we look.
Good. That only makes sense. So, I'm pretty sure we did, but I want to confirm. So we go on to, do we do, these are different colors here, I'm a little bit confused. But we do when the reports to the committees. And who is doing, I guess, Stephanie, our financial overview?
Yes. The status report, as of August, I'm going to give an overview of financials. All of the reports are ready, your balance sheet, and cash flow, ops, and revenue report are still in progress. This slide represents the unreconciled balances for July and August. Previously, Director Robinson asked if we could present it in comparison and the month before and the current month to see what it looked like. And on the screen, you have your comparison of July and August. You can see the unreconciled balance and compared to July is down by about $2 million, and that's because things are happening. We're hiring. Our staffing positions are being filled, and we're moving forward with capital projects as well. In particular, some capital projects that we have in front. One major one right now is the construction of the 2 ferry vessels. And of course, CAD has to pay out and then get reimbursed by FTA for those.
So some of that money will come back.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Absolutely. As you can see, grant funding credits that will we anticipate coming back. Well, credits that we had for the month, the GDOT money that we received, the $3 million, and then GDOT money for the pilot program, CAT Connect, which will primarily focus on our senior and differently able via microtransit.
Okay, I'm sorry. We have a question from Dr. Robinson. And this is going back to the, I'll get you, okay, there you go. To the IT equipment, what happens to the equipment and warranties if the state decides not to renew after the 1-year contract expires?
Could you repeat the question?
What happens to the equipment and warranties if the state decides not to renew after the 1-year contract expires?
I'm not asking.
Does she need a match? I think what she may be asking is, does she think that because it's a 1-year contract, that on the conclusion of that 1-year contract, that somehow the warranty or something expired with the warranty, this continue to run the equipment?
So the state,
3-year warranty period.
Yeah,
okay,
I think that's the answer on the warranty side. I'm not sure about the other part.
you might have to turn your mic on, Mr. Massimo. Hold it down, okay.
Not sure about the other part of Dr. Robinson's question. I think we answered the part on the warranties, and the warranties is that there's a 3-year warranty that runs its full life upon us accepting the equipment, purchase of the equipment, but I'm not sure about the other part of the question.
Let me clarify. Lenovo is a part of the Georgia state contract in which we are piggybacking off of that contract. once we are purchasing directly from Lenovo, and with this procurement, it is a 3-year warranty period. The contract that
Yeah, don't.
we are piggybacking off of is for the term of this procurement. Once CAT issues the purchase orders under these terms, Lenovo is obligated to honor the contract price for the length of the contract period.
Dr. Robinson, did we answer your question?
I like to say this too. There is such thing as extended contract, extended warranty. You can purchase.
That's
And
the
you
3
can,
year.
that company or another company.
Yes, technology changes so fast now. Really, in 3 years, they'll be obsolete.
Right.
Can Dr. Robinson hear us? Dr. Robinson, I'm not sure, were we able to answer your question or were you unable to hear us? We just want to be sure that we answer the question.
Well, both, but when I looked at the actual state contract, it said for 1 year. And that's how I was asking if the state decides not to renew after 1 year, what position that put us in?
We would have already procured the equipment, Dr. Robinson. If the board approves this action item, we will move forward with procuring directly from Lenovo. And their 3-year warranty is included in the cost of the equipment.
Yeah, I saw the 3-year warranty, but what I was questioning was, so the contract is not with the state, it's just we're using the state prices,
Yes,
but
ma'am.
the contract is actually with CAT.
Between CAT and Lenovo.
Right, okay, and now, do we have an existing contract with Xfinity, and when does that end?
Infinity did quote on this procurement, and as the action item, they were the highest bidder, and we decided to go with the low bid for the same equipment.
I got that part. My question was, do we have an existing contract with Xfinity now
Yes, we do.
in place?
Yes.
And when does that expire?
Okay, we don't have a contract with Infinity for the procurement of equipment. We have a contract with Infinity to maintain our servers in which they own.
And the other question I had was in reference to the report, the financial review report. Can I ask that question as well?
Sure.
So when I look at the figures, I'm not clear on what you're showing me when it says July 2023, and then August 2023.
Yes.
Are we saying this is the money on hand for the operating money on hand and payroll is
Yes.
zero?
This is the account balances as of the end of August. Payroll will always be zero because we only put money there to meet payroll and to pay the taxes. So that's always going to be zero. The first line, your operating account, at the end of July, it was $10.1 million. At the end of August, the unreconciled balance is $8.1 million. I recall that you asked that we show a comparison of the previous month to the current month. So this is an attempt to report in accordance to what the board had requested.
Okay. Yeah, and I think we talked about because we don't have the bank statements in
Yes, ma'am,
by,
absolutely,
you know,
yes.
gotcha. Okay, I'm good there.
Thank you.
And the transit tax collections.
Yes, next slide, please. That's coming in a later slide, Director. This is an update on the, if you recall, last month, I came before you asking authorization to reimburse the Federal Transit Administration for an overdrawn grant amount. That was on August 27th, I believe that was the board meeting date. On August 28th, that money was sent to the FTA via pay.com. And just as they had agreed that they would do a budget amendment to restore that money to the grant, and this is an overview. They received it on the 28th, and on August 31st, they had deposited that same money into our grant account that we can draw down when we make another electric bus purchase and or electric bus infrastructure.
That is incredibly positive news, and I think a reflection of the confidence that FTA continues to have in CAT's abilities in how we're moving forward on matters like that. So kudos to Ms. Cutter and the finance team for ensuring that confidence is there and navigating that situation to a very successful conclusion.
They give us a deadline as to when we have to spend the 20 hours.
Since we've already procured 3 electric buses, we are safe. We currently have another grant for an electric bus. And because we are short of match dollars, this will help us. Transit tax collections for the month of August are extremely low, and it's a reason for that. The state of Georgia issued a homeowner's tax release credit, grant, which was a credit on property taxpayers' tax bill. The good thing is we will get the transit tax money as soon as the county recovers the money from the state of Georgia, and we anticipate that within the next month or 2. It's a win-win for taxpayers. The state of Georgia issuing this credit is a one-time credit, and we anticipate receiving $691,698 according to the county's report to us.
And that'll be received soon after the tax collections in November.
As soon as the state reimburses the county.
Okay, so it'll be after that.
Well, it's my understanding that the state is processing the reimbursement. It's actually, the county's tax bill has already given or shown that credit.
Correct.
Mhm. They report that to the state, and the state in turn sends the county.
Okay, so this could actually be done before
Yes.
the November 15th
Yes.
collection.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that's good.
I have a question
Yes.
on that slide. When we talk about interest and penalties, is that something we incur those interest and penalties?
That represents the interest and penalties that the county collects on personal property, mobile homes, real property, that are within the special service transit district. And they share that amount of money, send it back to Chattanooga Transit.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
This is a comparison, the transit tax revenue. You can see the transit tax is way down because of the credit and us having to wait for the money comes in. And as you can see, the comparison of the reserve fund interest, we're still growing in interest every month. That investment account is still doing quite well. In our reserve fund, we currently have $8.1 million, a little over $8.1 million. The interest for the month was $36,891. Our recruitment staff. As I mentioned last month, August would look much better, and I think the graduation today is reflective of we now have a person that solely works on recruitment. She's doing an excellent job, she's diligent, and follow up, follow through. That's what she pays her attention to 8 hours a day, solely recruiting, getting these positions filled. We are very excited about the progress and the return on the investment of hiring someone that's very good and diligent in accomplishing her essential functions. I think today, the graduation, we had about 12 paratransit grads and maybe 5 fixed route. Paratransit is now fully staffed, and we hope to see significant improvement in our service delivery.
I think it's worth repeating that. We actually, thank you to Chairman Cody and Director Taylor for being with us this morning. We had 16 graduates this morning, 11 paratransit, 5 fixed, including the very first graduate of our CDL training program, our on-site CDL training program. This morning was historic, and it was the largest graduating class that CAT's ever had. So quite a morning, and that is only going to translate into service improvement. So I know that that's very good news for us, for the community, and for you.
What's the total number of graduations?
This morning, sir? 16.
Ms. Cutter, I have a question about that previous slide.
Yes.
I'm questioning, would it be helpful if we could actually see the positions that are vacant when it comes to staffing? I see the number, but I don't know what positions.
Yes, I'll work on that for board meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, I have one more question about the desktop computers. Are any of those for board members or just for staff?
Right now, staff, has that been shared a need that board members needed, IT equipment?
The board of directors have a separate, Apple product will be ordered, and that will be rolled out. Dr. Robinson with the new legislative agenda.
I can hear, but I don't understand what's being said. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I was away from the mic. My apologies. Is this better? Dr. Robinson?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
The board of directors have a separate PO purchase order for your equipment. It will be rolled out with the new software system, the agenda management software system. And I believe the PO is for 15 Apple iPads.
Okay, thank you.
So that is separate from this action item.
Okay, thank you.
And that concludes an overview of the financial services and compliance.
Treasurer's report.
So, that's it?
We typically walk through with each committee, we walk through the
Right.
old and new business.
But I meant for the finance side of it, that's it, okay.
We can walk through it.
Yes, please.
We'll walk through the matters that are on old and new business and the proposed
Business for action by other committees, just as we've done in the earlier committees today, so everyone's got an awareness.
on the, we recently sent out to the board, by snapshot.
I think you moved away from the mic, CEO. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I can't hear you anymore.
My microphone keeps,
Going in and out, huh?
Director, can you hear me now?
No, it was better with your mic.
Well, hopefully this works, and I'll try to be sure that I speak up. Under old and new business, we'll be bringing before the board consideration of action to adopt the proposed 2024 legislative agenda that we will be working with the legislature on beginning in January. Of course, we'll be coordinating and so forth prior to that, and that was sent out to the board by email. And I think will also be included again in snapshot for review. We are focusing this time in that legislative agenda on a couple of different items. You recall last year we had great success with the Georgia Transit Trust Fund. We are going to continue to pursue that in both types of funding opportunities. There's a formula funding opportunity that we will be seeking, and this year it is higher than last year's. Last year, our formula funding was around $270,000. By the time that the formula funding program had settled out, however, and this was in Ms. Cutter's report earlier, we actually received about $794,000 because every transit system in the state was not able to take advantage of their formula funding and we benefited from that. We're going to be vigilant and ready for that opportunity again this time. But for the 396.64, we are aiming that towards the continuation and expansion of our electric vehicle microtransit with 3 additional vehicles, as well as a direct line item allocation request of $1 million for electric charging infrastructure, which is really going to be critical to a lot of the work that we're doing. We have worked diligently with the city of Savannah, with Chatham County, with the Chamber of Commerce, with CEDA, with the city of Garden City because of their initiative in the electric charging infrastructure space, and with Georgia Power. We've been meeting for the last 4 to 5 months, collaborating on what a system of charging infrastructure would look like countywide. And so this will be our part of that partnership. So we look forward again to a very positive legislative agenda in terms of funding. In addition to that, we all know that we're working diligently with Hyundai to bring forward commuter express services. There's an operational need there that has a legislative foundation to it for what's called, we have called it in the past bus on shoulder. We're now referring to it as express on shoulder, but it's a way to give transit vehicles the opportunity to travel in congested conditions in the regular travel lanes, to be able to bypass that in going to their destination. It's a program that has been utilized on Georgia 400 in Atlanta between 2005 to 2012, sometime in that frame. And we're proposing that here. We had a meeting with the Commissioner of Georgia DOT and the Planning Director, Jenny Miller, recently while they were here presenting on the Coastal Georgia Transportation Study. And are receiving a lot of, both from our partners with Hyundai as well as from our partners at Georgia DOT, a lot of great support for the ideas that we're bringing forward. So this constitutes our legislative agenda. We look forward to bringing that before the board this week.
In addition, Dr. Manning will be the consultant team that worked on the zero emission bus rollout, the ZEB plan. Dr. Manning will be working with that team to present. It's a required element in order for us to continue to expand our electric vehicle fleet. And it also contemplates and anticipates a transition at some point or some use of hydrogen cell power. And we know that that's also an area of interest both for the state of Georgia as well as for our partners at Sunday. Like all the other plans, we've been this board has been incredibly forward with the master transit plan, the COA TDP, the zero emissions plan, and then of course the great budget work that Ms. Cutter's team always does, and that this board is such a strong and active partner in. All those things together means CAT is ready for anything. We've got a vision, we've got the action plan to go behind it, we've got the funding commitment there ready to go, we've got our demonstrations of need. So it's a great time to be moving those things forward. So those are the two items under other new business. And then under proposed action items in other committees, nothing under service delivery and operation. Under planning and infrastructure, we'll be bringing forward a request for a zero fare pilot program for K through 12, as well as colleges and universities in Chatham County. It will be for 1 semester. We'll begin in January, and with the presentation of the student ID, you can ride the CAT system for free for 1 semester. And during that time frame, and this will be a part of the presentation, the marketing team and the planning team will be working closely with all of the education institutions to develop the programs like UPass and other fare-based programs that the schools can participate in, as schools or students can participate individually. Again, you recall from the master transit plan, the alignment with the schools was a key focus because we want to be sure that our students are getting to the training opportunities and the education opportunities, and especially for our high school students that might need that extra ride to be able to get to a dual enrollment program at Savannah Tech or Savannah State or Georgia Southern. We want to be sure CAT is there for them. But this is our way of giving back a little bit to the community for 1 semester and giving us the opportunity to let people see what the service can be, what it can be like while we're marketing it during that period of time. The financial impact that Ms. Cutter has calculated for this is about $2,600. So not an unsurmountable financial impact. Then we will also.
How are you going to promote that?
There's a marketing plan that goes along with how we'll both promote the zero fare program with the schools and with the leadership of the schools, as well as how we'll work with them during the conduct of the pilot program to move beyond it into a true partnership.
So I just want to make sure that parents know about it and know how to access it, because a lot of times, while our intentions are great, but if they're not aware of it, then it doesn't happen.
That is a great point, and that'll be a part of what our marketing team will be aggressively pursuing. So I know that institutions, both the leadership of the school, but also parent-teacher organizations, those kinds of things will be utilized. And when there's community events, we'll promote during those events when kids and parents are out together. So we'll make sure to utilize every opportunity.
Yeah, actually go back, you mentioned earlier about the Highway 400 in Atlanta.
Yes, sir.
You've got a lane that you're talking about here, is that an express lane?
It is actually the use of the shoulder, but what was done in Atlanta was the shoulder itself was improved and restriped so that it was available for use almost as another lane.
That's express lane.
Exactly. So, and then express lanes is actually, and that was, it's interesting you bring that up because that was a part of the conversation when at Chairman Ellis's meeting that was hosted recently where the Coastal Empire Transportation Study was presented, widening of 16, and the conversation around the widening of I-16 was, and one of those lanes should be an HOV lane that can be used by carpools, van pools, transit, and so forth in a way that really helps us to move more people and give them a little preference in doing so, so that they're more attracted to doing that.
Great, great.
Thank you for that question, Director Walker. Then we also will be presenting the COA Transit Development Plan for your approval. You recall we had a special work session. I believe it was very well received by the board, really collaborative opportunity and a partnership opportunity, and lots of questions were asked. And that's exactly what we want. So we really dug in deeply to that, and we're proud of the work that was done there. And so we'll be asking for, again, this is, we talked about earlier, remember, this is the hard work that's been being done between this board, the community, and staff to bring forward those guides that we need for our roadmap for the future. And then we will also, the SMART grant that we received, there are a couple of different entities in that SMART grant. One is called an external advisory board. There's also a stakeholder committee. All of those individuals, because remember, this is a more national impact kind of a grant, all of the individuals that are participating are not necessarily just local. And so there's some CEOs of companies, there's people who are very active in the technology business and so forth that'll be participating as a part of that external advisory board. They will incur some travel cost, and this was specifically built into the budget of the grant application, but we needed to make sure, because we're always mindful of being compliant and also making sure that we properly not only are compliant and administer our resources, but we're using them in a really proper way. And so this is the policy that's put in place to make sure that all those over the life of that grant who are on those advisory committees that may participate and use the travel reimbursement component of this, that we have a policy in place that guides and directs it. And then lastly, we mentioned earlier in the legislative agenda, this year, one thing that's a little different, you may recall last year that when the session ended, and that was it was the first year, it was still this calendar year, but it was last fiscal year. It was the first year Georgia DOT had taken the travel, the Transit Trust Fund program and done a formula-based allocation. And so last year, as soon as the session was over, we had to submit applications for the funding. We were given our funding marks. We submitted our applications, and that was where the Chatham Connects, the restoration of the senior circulator services came in and so forth. This year, because now this is not a new program anymore, and GDOT's had plenty of time to really put everything in place, this is for fiscal year 24, because we're now in that new fiscal year, that we have a September 30th deadline to make submission of the funds that have been allocated to us by formula this year. And we mentioned earlier that amount has gone up. This year it's $396,664, and we will be making application as was described to you earlier for those electric micro transit vehicles. And then we will, of course, be ready, as we said, that if there are also any funds, again, that any of our partners around the state are unable to use, we will be ready. And we'll have a needs list that GDOT will know about, so that we're right at the top of the line to hopefully get some increased funding again. But that grant application submission, because this year they're now moving to the regular cycle, it'll be due September 30th each year, so the end of the federal fiscal year. And then it'll be moving forward like this from now on. But last year was a little different. That's why you're seeing 2 applications in the year. And then lastly, executive governance. Ms. Dumas, our board administrator, proposed in response to trying to
have recommendations
more timely with information and reporting, and we're considering things like when our statements are available, financial information is available, and other preparatory matters. We proposed a new meeting schedule, and for committees, a different approach for the governance committee, and then lastly, December, that would be an off month for the board each year, but for staff would afford us that opportunity. That would become our strategic planning month, because we wouldn't be engaging on the work of preparing for the board meeting. It will give us that opportunity to commit that month to strategic planning work we need to do to prepare for the next year. Ms. Dumas, did I miss anything in that explanation?
I think you caught all of staff recommendations. Yep.
So we're looking forward to continuing to work with you on that as well. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Director Stone.
Does anyone have any questions? Or information? Just want to make sure that everybody's questions are being answered. If not, our next meeting, of course, is our board meeting next week. 26th.
Yeah, we'll have to go live today.
Well, anytime. I thank you all for being here, for your participation, for your questions, and I thank the staff for your.
Thank you.